Hey, Macedonia friends and family. Lead Minister Brandon Bogue here with this week's Midweek Moment. I know that tomorrow is only the 1st of June, and so it is super early for me to be talking about something like this, but I love Christmas movies. And my own love of Christmas movies has actually been passed down to my children. And one of their all-time favorite Christmas movies, one that we have to watch every single December at least once, if not 20 times, is the movie Fred Claus. If you've never seen the movie before or heard about it, it's a movie that kind of takes the idea, what if Santa had a brother, and just kind of runs with that. Hilarity ensues, chaos takes place, and yes, by the end of the movie, Christmas is saved. But in the movie, there's this scene that takes place that's not just one of my favorite scenes of this particular movie, but maybe one of my favorite scenes in all of movies. It's where Fred, the brother of Santa, ends up going to this support group that exists for people who have popular or successful or even famous siblings. And during the course of this scene, you get to see not just Fred have to wrestle with this sort of thing, but you get to see Stephen Baldwin, the brother of Alec Baldwin. You get to see Frank Stallone, the brother of Sylvester Stallone, Rocky himself. And maybe my personal favorite in this particular scene, you also get to see Roger Clinton, the brother of former President Bill Clinton. Each one of them talk about the struggle that they have in having a brother or a sibling that is famous or is popular, and they have to live with constantly being compared to their sibling, usually in a negative way, as to how they're not measuring up to where their sibling is at. And as difficult as that may be for the guys in this particular movie, I can't possibly imagine what it must have been like to grow up with a brother of someone like, we'll say, Jesus. But for James, that was his reality. James was the younger, I guess you would call him half-brother of Jesus Christ himself. And there's a part of me that's always wondered, what was it like for him growing up? Like, what was it like to have the brother who's Jesus? I mean, mom and dad knew who Jesus was, and they kind of knew what he was there to do. But for James and the rest of his siblings, Jesus was just their brother. He was just the guy who was there all the time. I can't imagine what it must have been like for him to constantly be asked by his mother, can't you just be more like your brother? And then now to know that millions of people are trying to live just like his brother. One might think that growing up in such close proximity to Jesus, that James surely had to believe in who his brother is. He had to know that Jesus was the Messiah, right? Not according to John 7, verse 5. It says, for not even his brothers believed in him. Sure, James is not mentioned by name in that particular text, but it doesn't read for some of his brothers didn't believe in him. James had access to Jesus at a level that we can't even begin to fathom. He grew up with the Messiah his entire life, day after day, under the same roof as Jesus, and still, James did not believe in Jesus. But we know that eventually something changed. See, shortly after the resurrection of Jesus and after he ascended into heaven, there's this little mention in Acts chapter 1, verse 14 that's really easy for us to miss. It's something that we can kind of just glance on by, but it's so important to what we're talking about here. Acts 1:14 says they were all continually united in prayer, along with the women, including Mary, the mother of Jesus, and his brothers. We don't know exactly what it was or what moment that this sort of thing took place, but at some point in time, in the midst of Jesus' ministry, his brothers, who had grown up in this close proximity to him and still did not believe, something shifted for them. And they began to believe in who their brother truly was. They believed him to be the Messiah, the one who came to rid the world of sin, including the sin of James. Again, James had a proximity to Jesus that we can't even begin to fathom, but it took time. It took a good deal of time for him to come to believe in who Jesus truly is. You and I encounter people probably on a daily basis who grew up in some sort of a faith environment and yet still don't believe. Maybe they went to church every single Sunday. Maybe they got the gold star every week for attendance in Sunday school. Maybe they went on every single youth group trip there was, and yet still don't believe. They were around all of these faith elements, and they know the stories, they know the scripture, but it hasn't taken root in the only place that truly matters, their heart. And when we encounter these sorts of things, we might begin to wonder if it's even worth sharing our faith with them. If they know all the stuff, if they know what it says, then what am I going to say that's going to change their mind? So what's the point of sharing our faith with them? But just because somebody is around faith doesn't mean that they've always taken root in that faith. And so it's important for those of us who have faith to continue to share it with them, to be persistent in sharing Jesus with them, to be consistent if they've got questions, to try to find answers for them. We don't have to know the answers right away. We don't need to know them right that minute, but to seriously work towards trying to answer those questions. And certainly, we should never give up praying that God would begin to make a change in their hearts. Never ever stop praying for God to speak to them, because it may just take a little bit more time, no matter what their proximity to faith was. As we continue on in the midweek moments for the next several weeks to look at the words of James, we are going to encounter some incredible words of wisdom about faith. But I want to challenge you to keep in mind who it is that's writing these words. James, again, has some incredible stuff to tell us about having faith in Jesus and what that means. But understand that it took James himself a long time to come to faith. I have a little saying that you may have heard me say before, and you're probably going to hear me say it again at some point in time. But it's the idea that as long as there's breath in their lungs, their story's not over yet. So keep sharing faith with them, because you never know how long it's going to take for that faith to take root. There's hope for everyone. I'm looking forward to this journey through the book of James with you. I want to challenge you, if you've not done so already, to read ahead. But this has been your midweek moment. Take care of yourselves and each other.